Hi guys, so it's been a while since I just did a reaction video and I thought today I would get on that. Now, I really enjoy watching people reacting to Rwanda for the first time, sometimes also reacting to the UK. I find that kind of watching other people talking about somewhere is a really good starting point to go into conversation, because often people pick stuff up that, you know, I haven't noticed or I haven't thought about in a while. So there's a video called African Americans Give Honest Opinion of Rwanda, and I thought that one would be a really interesting one, and especially as well because I see that they're traveling with a young kid. Now, I don't have children, so I really can't wade in on that part of their travel experience, but it will be interesting to see, you know, how they found that and any challenges. So yeah, let's get into it.
Just a first impression of the first day was a little struggling.
The first impression of first day was a bit struggling.
Shalom YouTube family, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome to the family.
In today's video, we'll be giving you guys our first impressions of Kigali, Rwanda.
Also on this channel, we'll be traveling throughout the continent to show you the real Africa.
If you like this type of content, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Let's get into it. First, we're going to talk about just landing in Kigali.
Yes.
So just upon descent, looking out of the window, it was amazing being like up in the mountains, but being in the clouds, but you're up in the air, but you're close to the ground. It was
Rwanda is beautiful to fly into. It's kind of sad because a lot of the international flights are coming kind of middle of the night, so you don't always get to see it very clearly, but I love flying in, especially like in the morning or the evening, because there's a lot of lakes and rivers, and so when the sun hits it, you just see these veins of light going through the country. And as well, it's just full of mountains, and even if you come in at nighttime, there are hundreds and hundreds of sparkling lights. It's really quite magical. I do enjoy flying into Kigali, and during the daytime it just looks like a giant patchwork of like rice terraces and little agricultural plots and the hills. It's really a very pretty country.
It was just, I've never seen anything like it. There were so many houses and stuff in the mountains. It really was beautiful. And then when we landed and got to the airport, just when they opened the doors and we walked out of the plane, the air was super fresh. It smelled amazing. I know we said this in the Kenya video too, because it smelled really good in Kenya too. But the air was just...
It's worth mentioning as well, if you don't know, but Kenya, I mean, we're at altitude here, but Kenya is even higher. Nairobi's higher up than we are. And so, yeah, the altitude does help to keep the air quite fresh. Yeah, I mean, we do have some problems in Rwanda with sort of black belching smoke coming out of vehicles. The government are really trying to tackle that at the moment, so hopefully that will go down. And they're also really driving towards having electric motos now instead of petrol motorbikes. So we'll see how that goes, but that should help. But yeah, the altitude, it helps with the freshness of the air, but also to keep it slightly cooler, so you don't get that very strong savanna heat here, because we're up in the mountains.
So fresh. It's like different. It's really noticeable, especially at the airport, because sometimes when you get out of the plane, you can immediately smell like gas and stuff from the planes, but it just smelled really fresh.
Yeah.
Also, one of the first things I noticed walking up into the airport was the fact that there was like a screen, and it was like, it looked like facial recognition. Like if y'all ever seen like movies where they're like tracking people and it's like black and white and these little squares are coming up on people's faces. Mm-hmm. It was like that. Like when I looked up and saw it, I was like, look at that. I was like, whoa.
I don't remember seeing that. I last flew into Kigali when I was coming back from the UK in, I guess, August last year, 2024. I don't remember seeing that. I wonder if they're talking about the special gates, because if you've got a Rwandan ID card, or a Rwandan passport, you can just put that on the special gates and then you bypass the immigration queue and you go through the gates, and that's facial recognition. But they have those in all airports around the world now, I think, don't they? So I don't know if that's what she's talking about. I can't think of any other. Let me know below. If you've just flown into Kigali recently, let me know below.
And then the next thing I noticed was it was really small. Like when we stopped a lot of places, like when we got to Tanzania, we got off the plane and you like walk through the airport. Like it was just bigger. Like you walked in and you were right there at the little desk and that was it. It was just tiny.
Yeah, you cannot I was about to say you cannot get lost in Kigali airport. I did once. For some reason, I was busy taking a picture of the aeroplane, and instead of just walking through into arrivals, they'd created a new section for transfers, and I just followed the crowd through transfers. I was like, hold on a minute, I'm in the wrong place, and I had to come out and go back into entrance arrivals. But only I could do that. Nobody else could possibly get lost in Kigali International Airport. I always say it's roughly like Bristol Airport. It's pretty small. So it's easy to navigate around. It generally doesn't take you too long to clear the airport because it is so small. They are building a new big international airport at Bugesera, but it's going to be many years, I think, before that's up and running.
So now we're in the airport and we got to go through immigration and get our visas and stuff like that. So we do that, grab our luggage, and then we get a SIM card for our phones. So everything went smoothly until we had to get some transportation back to our Airbnb. Now, a lady originally came up to us and was like, oh, do you need, a taxi to go home? We was like, no, we're going to get an Uber. And she was like, Uber? No Uber.
No, there's no Uber. Uber did apply, I think, to Rwanda to work here, but for some reason was turned down. We've never had Uber.
We're here. I was like, boat? She was like, boat? Like, she didn't even know what boat was. So it was like, dang, how we going to get home? So it was like, well, we kind of probably going to have to take a taxi.
If you want to know how to get home, watch my video on tips for arriving in Rwanda. I cover that.
And so they went in, we asked them, we told them we were going to get the taxi, and they then gave us the price of how much it was going to cost. Now, at this time, we didn't know what the currency was, like the exchange rate to USD. So when they gave us a number, we just paid and was like, okay, that's cool. But then after getting to the Airbnb, we realized they charged us $25 to go like maybe 30 minutes to the house. Mm-hmm. So we low-key got scammed. But
it is expensive coming from the airport. People really do hike up the cost for the airport specifically. At the end of the day, like you said, you're tired, you've arrived, just get to your accommodation. Don't think about it after that. Taxis around town after that are going to be a lot cheaper than that.
You know what I'm saying? It's all good. Stuff like that happens when you get into new countries. Plus, when you really just don't know what to do in that situation.
And after we had like an early morning flight, we had a layover, so we were tired anyway. So honestly,
I really admire their approach on this and them saying, you just got to kind of suck it up when you're in a new country. But I would say, to Rwandan aviation and authorities and things, it creates a really bad impression when the first thing people feel when they get here is that they've been scammed by the taxi service to their accommodation. Because most of the taxis are, I think they're still supposed to have meters on them. There was a campaign to have meters on taxis and motos. Motors very quickly gave up because nobody could be bothered. I don't know about taxis. I don't take them often enough anymore. But if there's no meter in there and there's no signpost outside telling people how much they should expect to pay, then this is going to happen. I think a little bit more thought from the customer's perspective is required on that one.
The next thing we noticed is just how beautiful it was. On the way from the airport going to our Airbnb, just the mountain views, it was so beautiful. It was obvious how clean the place was. There weren't a lot of people walking. It just seemed really relaxed and calm. Like, I don't think we saw any traffic the entire time we were there.
That was lucky. Kigali can get absolutely traffic jammed. Maybe they were wandering around on a Sunday. Most people are in church on a Sunday, so Sunday mornings is a great time to go for a drive around because nobody's on the road. But you can get serious traffic jams in Kigali, depending on the time of day. Rush hour, avoid it.
Like,
Yeah.
there weren't congested streets or anything like that. It was really, really peaceful.
Very. So once we got to the Airbnb, we noticed once we walked in that it was very, very dirty. Now, mind you, the Airbnb host did tell us since we were coming in early from the airport that they were still going to be cleaning, but it looked like they just had a house tour party or something in that place. I mean, it was stuff everywhere. But, you know, they cleaned it, they got it right. But then after we realized they didn't have any dishwashing liquid, they didn't have any trash bags, they didn't have any toilet tissue, like some of the essential items that you kind of need when you first get to an Airbnb, which...
Yeah, that surprises me a little bit. I kind of feel like that's probably that specific Airbnb. I've had friends who've come and stayed in Airbnbs and it's been pretty okay. I don't think they've encountered quite that problem. So it's probably just that specific one.
Like, we were there while they were cleaning, and it was filthy, and it looked cleanish when they were done, but they didn't use anything to clean. Like, what did you clean with? Water? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, when I touched the dishes, they was all greasy and stuff, so
Yeah.
it wasn't very clean.
But on the upside, they had an amazing view on a balcony.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
Most places in Kigali have an amazing view just because there are so many hills.
Mountains, you can see the city on one side, you can see the local area on the other side. So I would say the pictures look like how the Airbnb was. It's just that it wasn't stocked with some of the essential stuff that
it was just
we would like.
severely lacking, and maybe it was because somebody was staying there right before, because like I said, when we got there, it was filthy. So maybe somebody was living there, using up everything, and then, oh, surprise, people were paying to stay here today. You know, I don't know. So the next thing we're going to talk about is trying to find stuff, because obviously the Airbnb didn't have anything. We had to go to the store. We needed toilet paper. We needed food, all these things. So I started Googling, like, stores, and not a lot is coming up. So I don't know if it's just the stuff is not listed in Google and there's all this stuff around, but you can't look on the phone and find it on the internet. So that was kind of a struggle.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let's just go to a mall, because I saw a mall and yeah, pretty much every African country we've been in, there's been a grocery store inside the mall. So, which you don't see that a ton in America, but since we've been in different African countries, there's like always a grocery store in the mall. So I was like, well, we can just go to the grocery store. There'll probably be a food court. We can get something to eat now since we're hungry and we got to feed the baby, and we can get some groceries and stuff. So we went to the mall, and it wasn't very mall-y. Like, it was like
We don't have proper shopping centres. We've got one attempt. Well, we've got a couple of attempts. We've got Kigali Heights, which does indeed have a supermarket in it. It's got a Simba supermarket in it. There's also... Let me think about this. I mean, there's the Chic building, but I don't know if they've got a grocery store in there. Yeah, we don't really have shopping centres in the way that, you know, most internationals would expect to find one. So yes, Kigali Heights is the main shopping centre, or UTC in the centre of town. They've also got, I think it's a Simba supermarket. So they are correct. If you head for Kigali Heights or you head for UTC shopping centre, you will find them at the back. But if you don't know that Kigali Heights or UTC is a shopping centre, is technically what we call a mall here, you wouldn't know to go there. So, it's difficult. If you're looking for a shop to go and buy things, search for Simba Supermarket or Sawa City. But even when you go into these, you won't really find the kind of range of products that you'd be expecting to find. Most of them have a food court. Simba Gashusha's got a sort of a little cafe, not a food court, but a cafe of some description. But it is difficult. You know, if you live here locally, you have one or two places that you always go. There's Frulep, Sawa City, Simba. I order my groceries online from Tuma 250, but the range is really, really limited. But you'll find the basics of what you need, like dishwashing liquid, washing powder for your clothes, some form of food. But yeah, it's it's tricky. And also the centre of town is not very lively, so you could ask for a taxi driver to drop you off in town and just find yourself standing there going, well, where are the shops? You know, where are the things that I need? Yeah, it isn't the easiest thing. I think maybe I should do a video on this. I mean, I have done a video on shopping in Kigali before, but maybe I should focus more on groceries. If that's something you're interested in, let me know below and I'll get on that.
If that makes sense. It was like some stores put together in one big building, but it wasn't giving real like mall vibes, and it didn't have like a real food court. There was just like one little place for food over here, which we got food that was good.
Yeah, it was good.
I think one of the things you kind of need to be aware of is that Kigali is very small. I know we talk about it geographically as being quite small, but just in terms of population, there's like 1.2 million people living here. Whereas, let me just check. Yeah, so I mean, Nairobi's like 5 million people. So compared to other African capitals, it's tiny. And the proportion of people who can afford to spend money is very small. And again, compared to places like South Africa and Kenya, not so many foreigners pass through here, you know, so there isn't that much spending power, which is why there aren't that many shops, you know, because if you import the stuff, who can really afford to buy it, kind of thing. So I think that's the reason for this, but it doesn't solve the problem because I totally get where they're coming from. But I think that might help to explain it a little bit.
We got some kind of like fried chicken. Yeah,
it was good.
It was good food. And then we went into the grocery store in there, and the grocery store was teeny tiny. They didn't have anything. they barely had groceries in there. And I mean, obviously, we don't know. We didn't see every grocery store out there, and I'm sure there's a lot.
I wonder which one they went to. But yeah, I mean, a grocery store here is not what most foreigners would expect to find in a grocery store. I mean, like, yeah, Tesco's in the UK, some of them are warehouses, you know. It's crazy how big they are. And some people might say they're too big and that we don't need all of those things. But I would also argue that a little bit more choice would be quite helpful.
A lot of markets, but we don't usually do markets until we've been to a place long enough to know where.
Yeah, you can actually go. Sorry, I know I keep interrupting here. You can actually go to a market, Isoka, like Kimironko, but you need to have been rested and fed and feeling very relaxed before you do that. That is not somewhere that you will want to go grocery shopping. It will be entertaining for an hour to walk around and look at everything, but you're going to get mobbed. There's going to be a lot going on in languages that you don't understand, and it's not going to be a relaxing experience.
So this was just a first off trying to get some food and some necessities, and they just didn't really have anything. So just our first impression of the first day was a little struggly because we're like, okay, well, it's going to be a little hard to get rides. It's going to be a little hard to get food.
Now, let's talk about actually leaving the mall. Now, this probably was our most struggling moment. Like, it was so, we had to really practice patience right here, y'all.
Right.
So we end up... So we end up trying to find, because like we said, we don't have Uber or Bolt, so
I downloaded an app. Yeah. I downloaded the Move app.
Yeah, so now we're trying to use this.
No. No. I've never managed to get Move app to work properly. I can't even get it to accept my sign in. I gave up on that a long time ago.
Move app, and we couldn't get this one guy to come for nothing. We tell him where we at. We're like, oh, we're right here at this store or whatever, come. He's like, okay, I'm coming. He didn't speak really good English, so it was kind of hard to understand what he was saying. But literally, we was waiting on this dude for like 30, 45 minutes.
That's very common. Don't use the taxi apps here. That is extremely common. Most people rely on a driver that they know. I will leave a guy's number below. He's not the cheapest, but he is reliable, or at least I've found him to be reliable. You know, I can't vouch all the time for everybody, but this guy here has helped me out a lot of times, and if you drop him a WhatsApp, he should be able to help. But Yeah, generally we work by people that we know and who have done a good job in the past, and we know that we can call them again. But of course, if you're a tourist and you're visiting here, you don't know these things and you don't know who to call. So I really feel for them because, it's really difficult, both with motos and taxi drivers, is not just being able to stop them and then negotiate a fare with them when you don't know how far away you need to go, but also they don't always know where they're going and they get lost really easily, and punctuality is not really a thing, directions aren't really a thing. I covered all of this in my arriving in Rwanda video, but be prepared. It is a struggle. It is a struggle. And I like the ways they said it was struggly. I've also done a video on having a bad day in Rwanda. And that was a blog post made by somebody who lived here for a long time. And I kind of went through it. And I know it can come across as being a bit negative here, but so far everything that they're saying is very valid. You know, Kigali is a work in progress. And I think it's interesting to listen to these things because as somebody who lives here long term, a lot of it doesn't bother me because my life is set up around these things. And, you know, I know who to call for groceries. I know who to call for a taxi, you know, that kind of thing. So it's not a stress for me. But I absolutely see it's a stress for them. And it was a stress for me when I first arrived and I didn't know what I was doing. So far, everything they're saying is very valid.
Now, mind you, we did use the same app, the Move app, on going to the mall. And we had a little issue with the guy finding a place, but we was able to have one of the security guards talk to the guy on the Move app, and he got there.
And it makes you laugh. I've said this before. It makes you laugh because Kigali is so small. How do taxi drivers not know where these major shopping centres are and these big cafes and restaurants? Especially when you compare it to somewhere like London, which is massive in size and population. But in order to become a taxi driver in London, you have to take a test called the Knowledge, where you've got to prove that without a GPS you can find any road in the A to Z map of London. Whereas here it's like it's a fraction of the size. There are very few places that tourists are actually going to want to go to. And drivers have no idea where anything is. It's fascinating. So you do need your GPS when you get in somewhere to be able to show the driver where you're going. Yeah, and GPS is fine on the main roads, but don't trust it off-road. If it looks like you're going well off-road, turn around because it gets a bit lost.
But leaving, I mean, it was terrible. So the guy ended up not coming at all, and we couldn't cancel the trip. So we ended up having to just find a random taxi guy that just wait outside the mall to pretty much take us home. But even with that, we showed him what a map was, and he was like, "Oh, like I don't know where I'm. Like, how am I supposed to get here?" And he brought another guy who was a little more helpful, and we ended up going home from there.
So obviously, since the ride thing ended up being a hassle with the complete like overpriced ride getting to the Airbnb in the first place, and then having such a struggle using the app to get home after, and then the other app that I downloaded never worked at all. So
most people who have not got a baby to carry around will hop on a public motorbike. I've done a video on how to take those. I'll leave all of these links below. If you are footloose and fancy free and you're up for it, public motos are the way to go. You just stop one in the street and off you go. Again, though, they get lost very easily, so you need to have a fairly good idea of where you're headed. Not always easy, but at least they are available. And like they're saying, it's a better idea to use a taxi that is in front of you rather than to try and call one and hope that they will come, because they might never.
Like, whatever. Yeah. So we ended up asking one of the guys that worked about a car, and he called a guy that he knew, and then we just ended up using that guy. Yeah. And he spoke English, not super well, but pretty well. And he actually knew his way around, and he drove us places.
When you find the guy who knows his way around, you keep hold of that guy.
And 2, he actually drove us around and showed us some things too.
Very nice.
So he was a really nice guy. So it got good with that, because otherwise we would have been stuck in the house trying to do I don't know what, because the ride situation was not as easy as we usually have it in other
It was a
places.
little struggly to begin with, but it got a lot better as time passed. So we're just giving y'all an honest opinion.
So since the grocery shopping situation was kind of difficult, we ended up using apps to get food. And obviously the Airbnb wasn't necessarily equipped to cook good meals anyway, so we kind of didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
So in using the apps, we did find an app. I can't remember what it was called. I'll put it in the description if anybody cares. But we did find good food.
Vuba Vuba, I'm assuming. Vuba Vuba it started off as restaurant food delivery service, but it also now does groceries and shopping. So Vuba Vuba is the big one. You can also use Tuma 250 to deliver, but their stock is pretty out of stock a lot of the time. Like basic things like, I don't know, butter and Akiva Guto, or, yogurt, stuff you would expect to find ubiquitously throughout any shop generally is out of stock a lot of the time. But they do accept card payments, they accept cash, they accept lots of different payments. So they're quite useful, and once they know where they're delivering to, they always find your house, which is absolutely wonderful. Whereas Vuba Vuba, they've got a lot better, but they don't always find where you are. So sometimes you can be standing on the street saying, hello, where are you? Where are you? I'm here. Where's here? It's like,
say it was more expensive than what we paid to get food delivered from wherever. It was significantly more expensive. It was at least $20-25 per meal, which obviously we're not used to paying that. We didn't pay anything near that in Tanzania. Even in Kenya, we said before that we thought in Nairobi that the food was more expensive. Kigali was for sure higher than
Kigali's expensive.
But we did find good food. We had good Indian food. We had good Thai food.
India Khazana is one of the best Indian restaurants anywhere, hands down. It's definitely a good place to go.
So now this is where things really start to get good, everyone. And while we see why people love to visit there, make it their home and things like that. We ended up going to a place called Fazenda. Now this place had everything as far as entertainment-wise. I mean, we did, and we have a video, we'll link that at the top, showing what we did at that place. But we did zip lining, archery, horseback riding, but they had so many more things that you could do.
They just had a lot of stuff, and then they had like free stuff too. Like they had like a big chessboard, checkerboard on the ground. They had a bounce house for the kids. They had multiple like big trampolines, like stuff that's free. Because when you go to the desk, like obviously you pay. I think we got a package to do all the stuff that we did, but you can get the things individually, or you can get packages or whatever. But if you just wanted to go there and walk around and see stuff, get some food, and play some of the free games, like you could do that too. Right.
The views at that place, y'all. We was already on top of a mountain. So you was able just to see the whole entire city. It was breathtaking just to see it.
It's a beautiful city.
Especially after riding on horses and just going through the woods and seeing it. It was incredible.
So overall, I would say that I like Kigali. We like Kigali.
For sure.
It's a beautiful place. I think that we would have to find a better place to stay, but that's on us. We picked what we picked. The food was good. The food that we had while we were there was good. The people were very nice. It was clean. The air was fresh. So overall, I'd give Kigali a go. It was good. I would definitely go back and visit again.
Yeah, for sure. And all the struggles that we experienced, though, if you're a person that don't really care about those conveniences and want the real African experience, being in rural areas, I think Rwanda is the perfect place for that because you get everything.
I'm not sure the city planners would like the city to be described as the real rural Africa when it's kind of really marketing itself towards being the modern metropolis. But Yeah, it's kind of that in-between point between a city and a village. I mean, we jokingly refer to Kigali as a village because it is small and you bump into everybody you know all the time. It's I like that about it. I'm from a village in the UK, so I like that about it. But compared to somewhere like, I don't know, Nairobi, Kampala, nah, they are big cities.
Beautiful people, the beautiful food and culture. So it's just the little things like that. With time, we would have figured that stuff out, but we just didn't stay long enough to figure it out. But like she said, we love Kigali.
I would definitely say get out of Kigali. Kigali, those frustrations are definitely highlighted in Kigali. I think get out of Kigali, go and see other places, because if they think that Kigali is beautiful, the rest of Rwanda is utterly stunning, especially if you head sort of west towards the lakes. Oh, absolutely gorgeous. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, everything they're saying is very valid.
And we love the people. And we love you for watching this one. So thank you so much for that, family. We love you so much. And if you enjoyed this content, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
Definitely liked it. I think this counts as sharing it. Yeah, so it's very interesting and I enjoyed hearing about that. I think it would have been interesting to hear how they're coping traveling around like that with such a small kid, because those frustrations must be multiplied when you've got a kid with you. But yeah, I mean, what they're saying is true. Yeah, we've covered this in previous videos, previous reaction videos. So, I mean, it's a work in progress. It's getting there slowly and steadily, bahoro bahoro, as we say. So I think it's really interesting to hear these things from people who are visiting, because like I say, my life is set up to live here and therefore I've mitigated most of those frustrations. Not all of them, definitely not all of them. Banking, don't get me started, but most of them. My day-to-day is fairly calm. But yeah, yeah. I'm going to just stop talking now. Let me know what you thought below. Do you agree with what they're saying? Do you disagree with what they're saying? Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you disagree with what I'm saying? Let me know below. Let's have a conversation.